The competition for places at Manchester United is indeed intense, but here is why Kobbie Mainoo and Sofian Amrabat, for me, is the best midfield partnership for Erik Ten Hag to start with. Welcome to the hotspot. My name is Webb. Let's get into it. Now, Casemiro dropping in form has been one of the biggest problems that Manchester United has had. From him coming from Real Madrid, putting on a high level performance to inspire Manchester United to finishing third in the Premier League, only for him to drop in form and later on get injured, for United to clearly be struggling in the middle. Now, in Sofian Amrabat, the expectation was United had got an able backup for him. Little did we know that at the club, the same club, we had a young emerging budding star in Kobbie Mainoo who could come out there and take on the duties that Casemiro is expected to do and more. But how is Erik Ten Hag supposed to play Kobbie Mainoo with the rest of the players he's got around him, considering the challenges he's got? He's got a Scott McTominay who is scoring goals, though not giving much defensively, but he is scoring goals. But also a Sofian Amrabat who is looking improved lately. He has got Bruno Fernandes in the middle there, the captain, difficult to bench. What exactly is Erik Ten Hag got to do if he's going to find the right balance in the middle? Because that is the elephant. That's the elephant in the Manchester United room now. Now, this is what I think. First of all, whereas I know that Erik Ten Hag has got to rotate his teams and not all players can be playing every game. That's obvious. It's a standard. I think Kobbie Mainoo should be the first player on the team sheet for Manchester United for now. Not because he's supposed to be playing all games, but because he is supposed for me to be starting all games, most especially now when Manchester United is trying to rediscover itself, when we are trying to change how we play to suit the perfect holding midfielder in Kobbie Mainoo that we have. Everything Erik Ten Hag should be doing right now should be revolving around Kobbie Mainoo. That is why, even if I don't expect him to play a full 90 minutes of every game, I expect him for now to be starting each and every game for as long as he's fit. Why? Because you need him to start and dictate the way we play, because this boy is the proper fulcrum that we lacked in Manchester United. Now, at a time like this, when we are rebuilding, when we do not have the right patterns yet, you want to start with your linchpin, with your pivot, and let him give the rest of the players balance and dimension, the way he gave the team balance against Everton, and then pull him off after, because certainly he's only 18. He is not expected to play 90 minutes of every game, but him starting the game creates the tempo and the direction for everyone. It brings stability and balance to the team, that even the players who will come off the bench to replace him will know how exactly he will have set the template for them to play on. So for me, Kobbie Mainoo should be a starter, and Erik Ten Hag is expected to be starting him against Bournemouth. So for me, Mainoo should be a mainstay in the middle, but not one that cannot be substituted. Let him play, even if he starts and gives us 60 minutes or 65 minutes of every game. For me, it's important. It is good for his development, but also him getting to understand his teammates, even them getting to understand him most importantly. It looks so easy for him to understand everyone around him. The problem is them understanding him. For that to happen, it shouldn't be happening only in training. It should be on match days like this. He should be there and starting so that everyone knows and understands how to pick his movements, his eye, because he has got a big vision and scanning ability. The teammates around him have got to understand him. That is why Kobbie Mainoo should be starting. Now, when Kobbie Mainoo starts as the one shielding the back line, now there are two ways for Kobbie Mainoo to start. If we play 4-2-3-1 formation, where the two holding midfielders side by side, one blocking on the left, the other blocking on the right, then Kobbie Mainoo can be blocking on the left, and Sofian Amrabat, seeing how he performed against Chelsea, he's warranted himself a start. It wouldn't make sense for Erik Ten Hag to maintain the same midfield that started against Chelsea, whereas we won that game. We are not as convincing because we are leaking goals through the middle. So the elephant for Erik Ten Hag to address now is the middle, and the solution is Kobbie Mainoo. But bringing on Kobbie Mainoo would mean someone has got to make way for him, even if you had players performing so well. And Erik Ten Hag said that he may not make so many changes to the team that beat Chelsea, which I don't think he should do exactly. I don't expect him to make so many changes, but I expect him to improve that, to solve a problem, a small problem that we saw in that game, and that is Palmer was running through our middle. Now the solution to that is Kobe Maino. But when you bring in Kobe Maino, someone has got to make way for him. Now that's where the headache will be for Erik Ten Hag. Scott McTominay is not giving you enough defensively, which should be for me his main role. But he's scoring goals. He scored the 2 goals that won that game. So as a manager, it's difficult to relegate that player to the bench, because if a player is giving you performances like this, the only reward for them is starting the next game. So Scott McTominay has made the whole midfield conversation difficult, because there is Bruno Fernandes, the captain, who is not consistently giving you much, but he's the captain and we know that he can turn up at any time. But also his energy up front is something that all the rest of the players will build on. So it's difficult, again, understandably, for Erik Ten Hag to bench Bruno. So what exactly then does he do? For me, this is what he has got to do. Play 2 holding midfielders, Kobe Maino and Sofiane Amrabat. They both must be starting for us to see the balance in the middle, because it's where we've got big weaknesses defensively. When we get that balance in the middle, then Erik Ten Hag has got then to make decisions. Do you rely on the hope that Scott McTominay could be giving you a goal or 2 goals any minute and start him? Or would you say, okay, Scott, whereas, yes, you give me goals going forward, I cannot rely on your goals to be winning games, because that's not his ultimate role. Whereas the goals are important, Scott McTominay's ultimate duty in United shouldn't be to score goals. So for me, if it were upon me, Scott McTominay would come from the bench. If things are not working, Scott McTominay has shown us that he can come off the bench and impact the game. Let him go down to the bench, rest a bit, be part of the rotation. Bruno Fernandes starts in the number 10. Have your 2 holding midfielders behind Bruno. Let Bruno start on top as the number 10. Then maintain Alejandro Garnacho, Anthony Dos Santos, and Rasmus Højlund up top. Or if you do want to give room or to give space for Scott McTominay, because you can't lose his goals, then you've got to make a sacrifice. What's the sacrifice? You either swallow the hot bullet, bench the captain Bruno Fernandes. No one will call Erik Ten Hag's head for benching Bruno against Bournemouth. Bench Bruno Fernandes. Let Scott McTominay play as number 10, because we know, and Erik Ten Hag has admitted, he can be dangerous in those positions because of his goal-scoring instinct, but also his finishing abilities. So let Scott McTominay play number 10. Either relegate Bruno to the bench, or, because it's difficult to put your captain on the bench, even if he's not really performing at the best level, then push him on the right, because whereas I hate to see it, I've consistently said I don't like seeing Bruno playing on the right. He's as good as not being there, unless when we are leading and we want to manage a game and keep a threat on the right wing and slow them down, because he's a threat on the right. So he's a threat anywhere he is. So he will keep the defenses at back, because and limit the activities on the left wing of the opponent. But for me, Bruno on the right is as good as him not being there. But if he has to start, then push him on the right, accommodate Scott McTominay as your number 10, then bench Anthony Dos Santos. That's the other way Erik Ten Hag can do it if he does want to accommodate Scott McTominay. So the headache for Erik Ten Hag for me now should be, how do I place both Kobe Maino and Sofiane Amrabat, but also maintain Scott McTominay on the pitch because of the probability he has of giving us a goal, pulling up with a goal from nowhere. Those are the decisions Erik Ten Hag is expected to be making, has got to be making. So for me, that's what I think. But the first thing that Erik Ten Hag has got to be doing now is beginning to build his midfield on Kobe Maino and Sofiane Amrabat. And remember, Amrabat is still on his audition. He's on loan until the end of the season. There is an option of buying him permanently. Erik Ten Hag has got to prove to the world that this boy who we waited for like Jesus is the right one to come out and replace Casemiro for the greater good, or to back him up if he comes and, of course, is good enough to be partnering as Kobe Maino instantly. So how is that going to happen if you're keeping him on the bench, or if you're exposing him by putting him out there in the middle alone? Because clearly Amrabat played a good game against Chelsea, but he was still exposed, not because he's not good enough, but because Scott McTominay was not backing him enough in the middle. So for Erik Ten Hag to look like he's trying to solve the midfield problem, he has got to be giving Sofian Amrabat the right partner for us to have a semblance of proper solidity, rigidity, and balance in that middle. We will be solid in the middle if we have Kobbie Mainoo and Amrabat. The beauty about these two is that both of them can give you something going forward. We saw how Sofian Amrabat was covering every distance, every ground against Chelsea. Now imagine if he has got Kobbie Mainoo playing behind him. He will be aware that behind me, I've got a rock shielding me, so I can go and express myself up front in the final third, which is important, again, to give us the balance in terms of defense and attack. But also, Kobbie Mainoo reminds me of Paul Scholes. He's that one player who has got the ability to pull up a pass from anywhere. He can come up and turn up with a beautiful pass from the middle, from wherever he is, from the number 6 position. And for me, that's something we've been lacking in the team. A player who is able to give you passes from long range, and that is exactly what Kobbie Mainoo gives us. So you've got to be starting him and trust that then he's going to give us a different dimension because of his vision and scanning, his accuracy with his long pass, how good he is with covering distances. When he goes up front, you know that Sofian Amrabat has got the discipline to retract and stay back. I think Erik Ten Hag has denied us for so long a chance to see how Sofian Amrabat can play with Kobbie Mainoo. Yet for me, I think when we do get those two playing right, we'll get the right balance in the middle. And trust me, Manchester United will be unplayable when those two are playing together in the middle. But they can't play together in training, but on match days, you don't, because of the fascination with the rotation. The rotation is good, but for now, I think Manchester United does not have the luxury of going into rotations. I think what we need now is to solve the midfield problem, because Erik Ten Hag gave it to him. He has slowly but surely solved bits of the problems we've had. The striking problem is no longer glaring because we've got goals coming from left, right, and center. That even when our top striker, Rasmus Højlund, is not scoring in the Premier League, Alejandro Garnacho will pull up with one. We'll see 2 from Scott McTominay. Bruno will turn up, and players like that. But the bigger problem for United now is in the middle. It doesn't make sense for us to be scoring goals but conceding as many or even more. For example, the game against Galatasaray, think about it. If Kobbie Mainoo had started with Sofian Amrabat, I don't think Galatasaray could have scored some of the easy goals they got. I don't think we would have struggled and looked shaky the way we did. But because of the fascination that Erik Ten Hag has got with playing with so many attackers and one holding midfielders, we become exposed. Now the attack works, we get the goals, but we concede as many, so we end up having high scoring draws. Now that is bad. It could have been the same case against Chelsea. We are almost conceding many goals against Chelsea, hadn't it been for, I think, how busy we kept them in their box, because we were all over them. But also give it to Harry Maguire and the goalkeeper Andrew Nana. They did save us, bits there. So are we going to rely on that every time? I don't think so, because we've got the personnel to give us the right balance in the middle, so that we are able to comfortably be dictating play. If you're shaky in the middle, it's like the core. In training, when we are working out, they tell you that your most important part is your core. Yeah? And that's why they call it the core anyway. You've got to strengthen your core when you're working out. Now, Manchester United is strong in all other departments, but our core is not strong, and our core is the midfield. That is where Kobbie Mainoo and Amrabat have got to be teaming up to solve all the midfield problems. When that happens and when that works and we look solid in the core, in the middle, trust me, everyone else then will be flowing. Diogo Dalot will have the confidence to fly and overlap on the wing even more. Luke Shaw will have the confidence, if he's starting on the left, to fly and overlap even more. But even if Luke Shaw is starting in the central defense, on the left-hand side of central defense, Sergio Reguilon, who I think if Luke Shaw is on the is on the left of the central defense, then Sergio Reguilon should be the one starting on the left. He also will have, because he has shown us as well that he has got the overlapping instincts, he will also be more confident to fly, because he knows he has got 2 rock-solid guys shielding us in the middle, being able to track and cover him on out wide when he goes to overlap. Same thing with Diogo Dalot. He knows that Amrabat can go wide and cover him. So that will give us a good balance in the middle, which we've been lacking. That is exactly what Erik Ten Hag has got to do. The thing of rotation is important, but Kobbie Mainoo, it's early days for us to be rotating Kobbie Mainoo, because we need him to solve the midfield puzzle. We need him to organize the whole team, all players around him from the middle. But for him to do that, he needs the right partner. Let him be sitting on the base. Either he sits on the base and Sofian Amrabat plays a little ahead of him on the right-hand side, bent to the right-hand side, or we play with two blocking midfielders. The two blocking midfielders would mean both of them are playing on the same line. One on the blocking on the left, the other blocking on the right. So you know that Kobbie Mainoo's role is to block balls coming from the left-hand side of the pitch. Then Sofian Amrabat will block balls coming from the right-hand side. Usually that is done if you're playing a back three. But in most cases, by the way, because of our overlapping fullbacks, we end up looking like we're in a back three. So then you need the two holding midfielders to become blocking midfielders now, to become your blocking midfielders. So it becomes like a 3-5-2 when Dalot and whoever is on the left, it goes up to swing in crosses. Then, like I said, these two then become your pure blocking midfielders. So with the ball when you're attacking, we might resort through to a 3-5-2, because then the fullbacks will then have to add to the attack and become wingbacks, become sort of wingers. So that's why we need those two natural holding midfielders. Whichever way you look at it, they will give us balance. And when we do get that balance and firmness in our core, in the middle, Manchester United will be unplayable. For me, that is exactly the one thing Erik Ten Hag is left to improve. The rest of the things look good. That's the one thing that Erik Ten Hag, for me, has got to improve. Whereas the rotations are important, I'm one of those who feel for now we cannot afford to rotate players because we are thinking about the Champions League. I think the one competition Manchester United should be focused on now is the Premier League, because there is not so much for us to achieve in the Champions League. We've already faltered, and we don't, not that we blame Erik Ten Hag. It was still part of him figuring out his players. He has been struggling with injuries. There is too much on his plate, and already what has been done has been done. No one will be calling for his head because we did not win the Champions League or reach the semi-final. For me, the expectation was never for us to go so far in the Champions League. But with the improvement we are getting in this squad, I think we need to focus on the Premier League, find the right balance, get the right players. I feel like Erik Ten Hag is close to his starting 11, and never mind the injuries, because we know that when Lisandro Martinez returns, it's obvious Luke Shaw is going to go back to his left back position, and Martinez will partner Harry Maguire. That's a no-brainer. So we know that when Casemiro returns, obviously, probably Sofian Amrabat is going to make way for him, or at a few times we will see him playing because of his rotation of the young Kobbie Mainoo. He will be playing with Amrabat. But for me, the template should be two holding midfielders. And I've been saying this even before we signed Amrabat. I said we don't actually before we knew about Kobbie Mainoo, I did not think Amrabat was really a backup for Casemiro. He's a partner, maybe a backup on the pitch to back him up when he goes up top and stays. United has got to be playing with two holding midfielders. In the Premier League, you need to be playing with two holding midfielders. One holding midfielder will expose you. Even if you're good going forward, there is no one singular holding midfielder who will balance that middle. The space in the middle looks too big that Kobbie Mainoo looks like a drop in a huge ocean. He's lost in there. And even if we know how good he is, he's made to work so hard, and he will struggle so hard if he's playing alone as the holding midfielder. Erik Ten Hag has got the personnel, he has got the armory, he has got the players to execute, but how he uses them is the question. Scott McTominay has made the equation a bit difficult for him, but then Erik Ten Hag has got to have some bit of character and either decide, am I going to have Scott McTominay start as a number 10 ahead of Bruno and push Bruno to the right, or will I bench Bruno and keep my Anton on the right, or am I going to bench Scott McTominay? Because the bigger problem, the sacrifice of Scott McTominay is to solve the bigger problem for the club, and that is how will it goes through the middle. Hotspot, subscribe. My name is Webb. Kobbie Mainoo and Sofian Amrabat should be our mainstay starters in the middle. Let me know what you think.